Therefore encourage each other, and build one another up, just as you are doing. 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Welcome back to Deep in Bear Country, a Berenstain Bearcast. I am your host, Phil Gonzalez, and this week, I'm a little ticked off. I'm a little angry. I'm a little upset. I'm a little weirded out. I am a little frustrated. At what? At the world today? Maybe, but also at Mike Berenstain in general. Oh no. Is there trouble in paradise, you may be wondering? I don't know what that means. But I am a little frustrated at this week's book because I was really looking forward to it, and I was not expecting it to be what it is. What is this week's book, and what is going on with my hair? If you're watching this on YouTube, my hair is a mess. It's a fright. I have a performance tomorrow evening at the Strike Theater. If you're in the Twin Cities, I'll be performing at the Strike Theater as part of their storytelling evening. And if you're in the Twin Cities, come in to see me. It's at 7:30. In any case, if you're not in the Twin Cities, forget about it. However, because I'm performing tomorrow, I thought, should I get my hair cut? Should I get a haircut? I decided against it because there's always that risk that I will not be able to control my hair appropriately for the evening, and I'll end up just looking like a fool. Unfortunately, my hair is currently at this state where it's too long to style consistently. And by style, I mean just run a brush through. But it's not long enough to just take care of itself. If you have short hair and you grow it out, you know that there's this happy point where eventually your hair just gets long enough to just take care of itself, just falls down. It just lays down. And my hair is not at that point. If you're looking like there are strands of hair near my part that don't know which side to fall on, and no side is good. No side is the right side. And then I have a cowlick in the back of my head that is like a punishment. It's like a punishment on me and anyone who sees me. And so my hair just sort of does this like crazy, like radish top thing at the back of my hair, that there's like hairs that grow out of the back here that they don't know if they want to go forward or to one side or the other or lay down flat, which is why if you ever see me from behind, I look like I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Also, I've got a weird bald spot on top of my head that I'm not happy with. I would almost prefer it if it was a real bald spot, like a bald spot. Instead, it's just like kind of a bald spot. And if you're taller than me, you notice it. I hate it. It's the only imperfection about my body. And that's Phil Talk. In case you're wondering Phil's thoughts on his own body, that's Phil Talk. But what is this week's book, and what are we talking about, and why is he so frustrated about this week's book? Well, I am frustrated with it because I was super excited about it. And this week's book is a brand new book. And I know that I don't usually cover brand new books, but this is a series that I've been covering from the beginning. This week's book is the Berenstain Bears Gifts of the Spirit Helping. The Berenstain Bears Gifts of the Spirit series is, of course, one of my favorite Berenstain Bears series. A bunch of books, like 9 now, that are religious in focus. They are Mike Berenstain's religious books after he went back to Random House with the religious stuff. They're hardback, as you can hear, and they are very well written. These are some of my favorite Berenstain Bears books in general. Just in general, I think Mike has done a great job at demonstrating for young readers his own personal theology, his personal philosophy, his approach to life, his approach to community, to friendship, to love, to caring, yada, yada, yada. If you've listened to this show in the past, you've listened to me talk about this. I think the Gifts of the Spirit are mostly really good books. However, if you've also been listening to the show, you know that I was sorely disappointed in the most recent Gifts of the Spirit book. The Gifts of the Spirit Goodness book, I thought the message was super mixed up. For a book that I thought was going to be a home run, just this straight shot, like all of his other books have been, it was actually kind of all over the place and like subverted its own message. It wasn't really about goodness at the end of the day. It was way preachier than maybe it was just because it was about the preacher's wife. I don't know, but it was a bit of a disappointment. Just theologically weird and socially weird, and just didn't feel of a piece with the rest of them. But I had high hopes for this book. It's been a while since we got a new Gifts of the Spirit. I saw the cover and I was like, this looks like fun. And then in the Berenstain Bears collectors group, the week this dropped, someone was like, I got my copy of Gifts of the Spirit helping. And their only comment was, they said, I can't wait for everyone to read it. And they said, oh, Papa. And I was like, oh, is this going to be a Papa-centric story? Can't wait to sink my teeth into it. And of course, it's Gifts of the Spirit, so I own my own like physical copy. This isn't a book I usually get on. These aren't books that I get on digital. However, because I'm doing this episode and I'm doing it live on like the video tape, I got myself a digital copy because otherwise I'd have to scan this whole thing, which means I would have to crack the spine and either so much blah, blah, blah. Not going to do that. So I actually got myself a digital copy of this, which costs the same amount as a physical copy of this because these are brand new books. Also, go out and buy all the Gifts of the Spirit books. They're my favorite series again, and they're not doing very well sales-wise. So please support Gifts of the Spirit helping. However, should you get this Gifts of the Spirit book, let's find out why I'm so frustrated with it and what it's all about. So we will now turn in your hymnals to the Berenstain Bears Gifts of the Spirit helping. This is a large window has opened up by me. It's a very large one. Don't worry, the book is larger. It's 2-page spreads, so I had to make a large window for the 2-page spreads. Gifts of the Spirit helping, brand new book, 2023. Let's find out what those bears are all about. Are you ready? So, Gifts of the Spirit. So if you get the digital edition has this frontispiece. I guess the actual book does too, but it's the cover pages, not the cover page, but what do you call them? The liner pages, like just the colorful just color, like you open up the book and like it's just the inside of the cover. It's just pink with like some birds, and it has a stamp on the page facing the reader that has to, from, and lines. Like if you were giving this book as a gift, you would fill this out. To Molly, from Papa, Mama, Dada. You can't do that with a digital book. So this is actually pretty cool, telling you you're just getting the book. No shenanigans here. No hanky-panky. No, we're mixing it all up and we're reconfiguring elements of the book for this series. No, these are the pages we sent off to the printer. Here it is. To, from, and a bunch of lines. Can't fill that out. So what is this book? Gifts of the Spirit helping. I read the opening quote. Therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing, from the first letter to the Thessalonians by the Apostle Paul. And as far as research goes, First Thessalonians is, according to most biblical scholars, the earliest written bit of Christian writing from the entire New Testament. It is considered to be the oldest example of Christian writing, and date-wise, it comes before everything else. There was actually some contention over whether or not it was actually a Pauline epistle. Some people think that actually starting with part 5 forward, might be an interpolation from later on. But most scholars believe this is an authentic Pauline epistle, letter to the Thessalonians. And at this point, he's talking a lot about the resurrection and, being cool with each other, all the other people in the church. And there's a lot going on with Paul at this point about his theology changes, especially once he dies and it becomes other people writing the Pauline epistles. But I've actually been listening to books recently about that are covering the history of the Christian church as far as like their attitudes towards the resurrection, which is really fascinating. If you ever want to, for the first like couple of hundred years of what is now Christianity, when Christianity was just this like sect or even just like offshoot cult of Judaism, the idea of the resurrection went through a lot of, the Gnostics had one idea about what the resurrection was. There were people who believe you'd be resurrected in spirit, people who believe you'd be resurrected in the physical form, people who believe Jesus was resurrected in spirit and physical form. There was a lot of controversy over people who thought that his body was just stolen and that the Christians were using like this whole like myth of the resurrection to cover that up. There was a lot of stuff going on. And so it's cool that like this early writing from Paul, the First Thessalonians exists, just so we can sort of read like what's going on in Paul's mind as he's prepping people for this new church that he's helping set up. He's also has nothing to do with cleaning house, which is what we're getting to now, because Gifts of the Spirit helping, we have our front page and there is a picture for this title page that if you are a person who is of any kind of Berenstain Bears familiarity, any kind of Berenstain Bears history, this is where your suspicions are going to start creeping in. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, your suspicions are correct. Spoiler alert. What you think is about to happen is about to happen. Now, for me, I skipped ahead to just the body of the book. So it took me a few pages before my alarm bells started going off, because we start off with something pretty cool. We start off with the rare acknowledgement that Mama Bear is a businesswoman. She owns a store. She has a quilting store. They actually talk about it. Mama has a hobby, that's quilting. She's the president of the Bear Country Quilters Club. In fact, she's such a great quilter, loves it so much that she has turned her hobby into a business. She has her own quilt shop. It says she turned her hobby into a business when she opened her own quilt shop. It was a lot of work running a business and doing daily chores too. Mama made it work though. Now that's it. We don't ever get to see, we see like a shot of Mama working inside the quilting store, like it's a little distant shot. It says she made it work. And it was a lot of work running a business. I don't know if that means she's not doing it anymore, because it says she had also turned her hobby into a business. Not she's turned her hobby into a business, but she had turned it into a business. She had turned it into a business. I'm just wondering if Mike is leading us to believe that like this is a business that went under because you can only sell so many quilts a year. I don't know. We don't get a definitive answer to that. I was excited though, because I thought maybe this was going to be a book about them helping out at the quilting store or something. Hold on to your bottoms. The Quilters Club is going to have an outing. That's the inciting incident in this story. They want to go to a quilters convention in Big Bear City. Unfortunately, that means they're going to have to stay overnight. I don't know why it means that. Maybe the quilting convention goes late. I don't know. It could be maybe it's a 2-day convention. I don't know. Mama has not gone anywhere on her own like this in a long time. Now, she's not really going on her own. She's going with a bunch of her quilting friends. That's not what's worrying her. What's worrying is that if she goes to an overnight event like this, no one's going to be able to do the stuff she does around the house. Who's going to take care of my share of the chores while I'm gone? All the cooking, cleaning, and shopping I take care of around here. Now, if you're like me, your first thought is probably, Mama, you're going away for a night. You're going away and coming back. If you have any shopping to do, you can just do the shopping before or after. The place isn't going to fall apart. You can do all this. This is a Mama Bear who seems a little more reactionary than Mama has been in the last few years. And she's like, so what's going to go on around here? Who's going to take care of all this? And Papa says, alarm bells going off again. Papa says, why, yours truly, Papa Q Bear, of course. The Cubs and I are great at chores. We'll do it all. We'll handle the job with one hand tied behind our backs. And Mama says, is that so? Well, we'll see about that. Then the phone rings. It's the quilting club. And Mama's like, I'm coming to the convention. I'll just leave it all to yous guys. And Papa says, "Don't worry, we can handle things here, no problem." Now, I'm reading this book, and I'm like, Papa's acting strange. This is a much more overly confident Papa than we've gotten recently. Also, current Mama would just be like, all right, let's make sure all of our ducks in a row. I'm going to be gone for one day. What do we need to make sure is being taken care of? And then there's this picture. It's currently up on my screen, but if you're not watching this, Mama is looking at her cubs. She has her hands on her hips, her mouth wide open. Mouth wide open. Her mouth wide open. And it looks funny. In fact, some of the poses of these characters by already look a little funny. Not like off model, just posing wise, they don't seem consistent with what I'm used to. I thought it might all be in my head. Now keep in mind, I've been doing this show for 8.5 years at this point. But then I turned the page. And this is where it all clicked into place. Papa decides he's going to clean all the rugs in the house. The cubs are like, okay, well, we'll get the vacuum cleaner. And he's like, never you mind. I'm going to get the deep down dirt with an old-fashioned rug beater. He grabs all the rugs, the rug beater, and the cubs are like, wait. Mama's already put the wash out on the washing line. They run outside. Papa's beating the rugs and getting the dirt all over the clean clothes. And he says, don't worry. It'll rain and the dirt will rinse off before Mama even gets home. Now it's time to go inside because it's lunch and I'm going to make my triple flip honey mustard pancakes. And the cubs are like, honey mustard? And this is when I was like, wait a minute. Wait one gosh darn minute. Because things had started to seem more than a little familiar to me. How familiar? Well, give me a sec here, and I'll show you how familiar. So, I did a little digging, and I had to do a little searching, and I had to do a little finding. But there was a book that came out decades ago called The Berenstain Bears Life with Papa. And it's a very similar book. If you hold a copy of Life with Papa up next to a copy of The Berenstain Bears Gifts of the Spirit Helping, you will notice they are remarkably similar. In fact, I would go so far as to say they are remarkably the exact same book with Honey Bear added. Oh, and in Life with Papa, Mama doesn't leave to go to a quilting convention. She leaves to go help a family member take care of a newborn baby. I'm not used to the Gifts of the Spirit books cheaping out like this. Now, I know that Mike has strong feelings about these older Berenstain Bears books. These are books that he holds dear to his heart, that mean a lot to him, and that haven't gotten a lot of attention in recent years. These are books that the stories and the illustrations of which will fade into the background, and because Life with Papa was not a mainline book. These were smaller books. They were published along with like the Busy Beavers and the Neighborly Skunk, Soccer Star, I think The Big Election was one of them. They were these little books. Some of them were given away as premiums with like McDonald's or Chick-fil-A. That maybe not Chick-fil-A. Maybe it was just the McDonald's ones. They're unusually sized books, but I really enjoyed them. I like the illustrations. They're dynamic books. I believe maybe some of them were illustrated by freelancers. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure if they were, but I remember liking the illustrations a lot. And the stories they're breezy. They're breezy little stories. And he's repurposed them recently-ish, in the last decades or so, for religious books and other books, just these stories, just to get them back out there. But the Gifts of the Spirit are different. These are hardback premium books with pretty well thought out reflections of Mike's beliefs and theology. These are books that I actually have sort of put on a pedestal myself as exemplary examples of modern Berenstain Bears. This is as good as you can make it. Like, this is as good as it gets, but like, you can go this hot. You can hit fire on all cylinders like this. And all of a sudden I'm stressed out because that's not what we're getting here. We're getting something else. And well, I guess nothing to do now but sort of take you through the rest of this book and show you just how weird things get when this happens. So let me just readjust my book here. Don't worry, I'm gonna bring Life with Papa back because I'm gonna have to be doing a few more comparisons and contrastisons with it. But for now, Papa makes the honey mustard pancakes, but he accidentally flips them onto the ceiling, and he says, "Don't worry, Mama's ceiling is clean enough to eat off of." And then he accidentally lights a fire without opening the flue, or as they say in this version, opening the chimney, which I guess you don't want to have to explain to a kid what the flue is, but the last book didn't explain what the flue is either. House fills with smoke. Papa tries to put the fire out with a pillow. Again, a weird thing for modern Papa to do. Like, it's weird. Pillow rips, feathers go everywhere. Brother Bear puts out the fire with a bucket of water. Feathers, smoke, gunk on the ceiling. Oh, sorry, gunk in the fireplace, goo in the ceiling. Dirty wash on the line, and then the phone rings. Uh-oh, the Quilters convention is canceled because of a power outage. Mama is starting for home and will arrive soon. The house is a mess already. Bear family, what are you going to do? Don't worry. Never fear. Papa, what can we do to help? And he says, I think I'm beyond help. Nonsense. You never are beyond help. Not when you have helpful cubs like us around. Come, brother, come, honey, this is sister. And they get to work. The sister bear uses a fan to blow the smoke out. Brother cleans the floor with a mop. Honey vacuums up the feathers. They all take the dirty wash down to the brook to clean in the brook. I guess that's where you do the wash in bear country. It's really weird, like they are fully modern people otherwise. Mama gets home. She comes in. Wow, this place looks great. How did you do it? And Papa says, well, I admit it was more work than I expected, but I had a little help from my 3 assistants here. And the cubs are like, yes, just a little. Just a little. Just a little. Just a little help, Papa. But that's not... The gifts of the Spirit... I'm just gonna keep hammering this. The Gifts of the Spirit books are a religious line of books about being a community, about being a family, about what it means to love and care for each other. The Berenstain Bears' Life with Papa was about what a goofball our Papa is and how he's always getting into messes. Always getting into messes, that Papa. They're very different things. And Gifts of the Spirit... Hold on, I'm running back here because... Life with Papa isn't about anything other than Papa making a mess. And Gifts of the Spirit is definitely about trying to be about something. So as you can see, Mike has taken, or as you can't see if you're just listening to this, but if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see, otherwise I'll explain to you, that Mike has taken the original illustrations from Life with Papa and he's redrawn them. But he's redrawn them to a degree that I'm not used to with Mike. Like, he's redrawn them so specifically. Like, I've seen Mike redraw books in the past, and he usually tries to adhere to like kind of the layout and stuff that his parents originally did. but he adds his own. This is very much Mike attempting to exactly replicate, except for like the coloring and a few of his own little like filigrees about the mouths and the eyes and stuff. He's copying the original book down to like the weird faces brother and sister make when the house fills up with smoke. Like he is adhering to the original illustrations that his parents put down. And it's jarring because these are the Gifts of the Spirit books. These are much gentler, much more almost pastoral at times books from the Berenstain Bears. But we're getting a lot of wackiness. We're getting a lot of faces. We're getting a lot of strangeness. So I'm gonna find another example here because he had to change a major part in this book, in the books. And I'm going to show you what that is right here. Because in the original book, what happened was the bear cubs were like, "Don't worry, Papa, we'll help. Or we can find help." And they actually enlist the aid of their woodland friends. So they get, in fact, it's led by the neighborly skunk. The neighborly skunk's a character in this book. They go out and he's like, "Don't worry a thing. Don't worry your faces. I'll gather everybody together. We'll help out." Why? Because we're neighbors and we help each other. So instead of sister blowing the smoke out of the house with a fan, it's a bird flapping the smoke out with its wings. Instead of brother mopping up, it's the squirrels sweeping up the floor with their tail. Instead of honey vacuuming up the feathers, it's a frog licking the feathers out of the air, which is weird. And instead of everyone taking the wash down to the brook to wash for whatever reason, it's the raccoons rinsing the clothes off because that's what raccoons do. They rinse things off with their little man hands. It makes a little more sense. Then Mama comes home. She comes home because, in the original version, because she wasn't needed, because there wasn't enough help needed. They had her relative had enough help. She shows up back home, and we get a much better joke at the end of the original book. Let me just pull this up real quick. We get a much better joke in the original book. The joke was, "The house looks wonderful. However, did you manage it?" And Papa says, "Well, it did take a little doing." And the cubs say, "Yeah, and a little undoing." Whereas in this one, they're like, "Yeah," he's like, "I got a little help." And the cubs say, "Yeah, just a little," which is, a snarky comment on their part, which I appreciate. But I like that they call back to the fact that Papa was trying to help in the first place and that they had to undo all of his help. Like, that was the point of the book. That, like, he's a goofball. He's a screw-em-up. He doesn't know what he's doing. Papa Bear. Aw, Papa Bear. But but that's not the joke at the end. Now, the joke is that he did need help, but it was the Cubs helping him. I don't know. The reason this book cheeses me off is because it undermines itself by not being an original story. So this is, let me grab it. Got it right here. This is the Berenstain Bears Gifts of the Spirit helping, as I've said a million times, Gifts of the Spirit helping. Part of the Gifts of the Spirit series, one of the Gifts of the Spirit is that we help each other out. If it was going to adhere to what we've established in previous Gifts of the Spirit books, you can still kind of I think you can fit this plot into a Gifts of the Spirit book. I think you can make that work. Mama goes out of town, and everyone decides to pitch in and help on what Mama's chores are. That's perfectly reasonable. That's a reasonable plot. Not even if no wackiness happens, you can still do a story, and maybe it teaches them to appreciate what Mama does. Like, maybe that's one of the things. Like, maybe Papa's still just like, you know what? We don't have to do this, but let's clean the rugs. Mama usually cleans the rugs. Let's clean the rugs. And then they're like, oh, it's a little harder than we thought. Maybe that happens. Maybe some disaster occurs. I don't know. Because the new bears aren't disaster prone like the old bears were. It doesn't fit as well into the world of the Berenstain Bears anymore. However, The original book, Life with Papa, actually fits the mold of a Gifts of the Spirit book better than the Gifts of the Spirit version, because the impetus for the story happening, the inciting incident, Mama gets a call. What's happening? Relative is having a baby. Mama's like, I'm going to rush down there. She's going to need me. She's having a baby. She's having twins. That's a great beginning for a book about helping. What's Mama doing? She's helping. Who is she helping? A relative we've never heard of. Why? Because that's what families do. That's what families do. That's what communities do. You run out of the house. You help someone have a baby. We know it's the Bears, so they're probably having the baby in the house. That's the way it works. Home birth. Home birth in Bear Country. Papa is so inspired by Mama's action that he decides to become a helper too, decides to help around the house. However, he's not good at what she does, so he starts screwing up. Then, when they've screwed up and made a mess of everything, what happens? They get help from who? The community. They go out to their community. In this case, it was the woodland creatures who don't exist in Bear Country anymore, but that doesn't matter. They were chased out of Bear Country. That's why it's called Bear Country, not Animal Country. Chased out of Bear Country, told to get their own land. Chased out of Bear Country. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So they go outside and the neighborly skunk is like, don't worry, Papa. We're all here to help. We'll help you clean your house up. And they do. In the original version of Life with Papa, which is a weird name for the book now I think about it. It's not Life with Papa. It's just a day, a long afternoon with our father. In the original version of Life with Papa, Papa Bear was like, we had Mama goes off to help. Papa decides to help. Cubs need to help him, but they can't. Neighbors come a-running. Everybody helps. You could have taken that story, that exact story, thrown on an ending where we talk about helping each other out, being a community. Yeah, I don't know. Throw in some Bible verses. Again, there's no Bible verses in this. There's no Bible in this. There's no mention of God in this. There's no mention of Jesus in this. The only biblical thing is that quote at the beginning. Very unlike a Gift of the Spirit book. Instead, we don't get that at all, and it doesn't tie into anything, and it's not really about helping. We could have had a character be like, helping only helps if you help. Helping, like, help the Thessalonians here. What does it say? It says, I mean, Mike put this in here for a reason, for us to think on it. Encourage one another and build one another up, just as you're doing. Build one another up. That's helping. Remember, as the Apostle Paul said in the First Thessalonians, you gotta help each other out. And then he like tries, but he keeps screwing up. That's okay, because we're gonna help you with your helping. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm just disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Especially because the cover is something they're not even doing in the book. Like, it's Papa hauling an old tree stump, Mama working in her garden, Sister doing the yard, and like resodding the yard, and Honey raking leaves. This doesn't even happen in the book. Brother Bear mowing the lawn. This doesn't happen at all. This isn't what the book's about. I feel like this is a picture from something else, and I can't put my finger on it. If anyone knows what this might be from, what is this picture? It's freaking me out. In any case, the Berenstain Bears Gifts of the Spirit helping is just a rework, not even a rewrite. It's just a reworking. It's also the he had to simplify the language and like shorten it up in a lot of places, so you lose some of the funny like the franticness of it, because Mike had to I'm sure for stylistic reasons or whatever, he had to shorten it up. It's just as long a book, but that was Gifts of the Spirit helping from 2023. Do I recommend it? Now, I'm a completist, and I love the way the Gifts of the Spirit books look on a bookshelf. So I would say yes, please buy a copy of it, because it's going to look awesome on your book. Not since the days of Value Tales has a set of books on a bookshelf looked this good. Value Tales looked great on a bookshelf. These look great on a bookshelf. I love the spines. I love the consistency of the design. I hope they continue coming out like this. Just not a great book, except unless you want to get Life with Papa, and you don't have the means to do that. However, Let me just look this up. Berenstain Bears Life with Papa. The Berenstain Bears Life with Papa. You can buy a used copy of it for like $5 or $6. You can buy it cheap. I know that it used to be available digitally. It might be available digitally from like libraries and stuff. That may have been where I originally read it. I own a copy. I own a paperback copy. But yeah, that's it. So that's Berenstain Bears Gifts of the Spirit. Life with Papa rewrite. I'm very disappointed in it. I'm very disappointed in it, and that's rare for me because I'm a happy man and like things. If you're in the Twin Cities, please come and watch me tomorrow night. It's too late. If you're in the Twin Cities, however, next month in November, I will be performing on the 16th of November. Remember, 16th of November. Again, Thursday night at the Strike Theater. I'll be doing another storytelling thing. So if you missed this one, don't worry. You'll get another chance in a month. But thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting the show. It's great. I love hearing from all of you. Let me know thoughts down in the comments. Let me know thoughts up in your heads. I don't know. Keep on keeping on. Be cool. Do your school, whatever. And I'll see you all next time. Deep in Bear Country.